Hey guys, it's Targon here doing a Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we are going to cover the final boss in the current Doom Tower rotation, the Eternal Dragon rotation, and the final boss is the Eternal Dragon. So, the Eternal Dragon, he can be pretty tough. He's not as complicated as a lot of the other bosses that we face in the Doom Tower. He kind of just does the same thing in different ways, which is blocking your skills, which makes it very annoying to deal with. So there's a few strategies that you can use to kind of help you deal with what he's doing. So let's go ahead and get in and look at his skills. So let's go here. And I'll show on floor 80. And again, this is hard. So when you get to the Eternal Dragon, so one of the more complicated things that is going on is he's going to conjure 3 minions, all right? You've got the Eternal Priest, the Eternal Guards, and they do a few different things, which we'll cover in just a second, okay? So first, let's go over his active skills. So number 1 he's going to use is Soul Burst. So it attacks all enemies and puts all enemy skills on cooldown. All right. Now you can resist this. So I definitely recommend if you have the champions to resist, bring them in. It then is going to fill his turn meter by 5% for every turn remaining on all enemy skill cooldowns. So if you have a bunch of people in there with, say, 5 and 4 turn cooldowns and they all get put on cooldown, he's basically going to get another turn right away. And then he's going to go into his second skill, which is Spirit Rush. Attacks all enemies, inflicts bonus damage for every turn remaining on all enemy skill cooldowns. 20% damage for each turn of the cooldown. So if you've got a lot on cooldown, this hits hard. All right, and it's going to place a fear debuff on enemies with no skills on cooldown. Attacks all enemies. So his A1 is attacking all enemies and places a blocked active skill. So just when you get your skill cooldowns back, he's going to be throwing this on you. So for this A1, it can be helpful to either bring a cleanser like Doom Priest or someone who can block the debuffs. Okay? So now with these minions, the Eternal Priest, it's kind of a race to kill the Eternal Priest. So I'll just jump down here. So you have the Eternal Priest and the Eternal Guards. They're there. They do a few things, but the big thing is his Consume Soul. The dragon's going to have this Consume Soul thing going on. At the start of the turn, he will consume the Eternal Priest, and it will reset the cooldowns of all the dragon's skills and gives him an extra turn. You do not want this happening, okay? So you want to kill the Eternal Priest. The other thing is, if you kill the Eternal Priest, then you're going to be able to get all your skill cooldowns back. It sort of like refreshes your skill cooldowns. It's the same thing that he gets. If you kill him, you get the blessing that he would get. So if there's no Eternal Priest, he's then going to sacrifice the Eternal Guard, which will heal him by 15% of his health. So that's a substantial amount. So you want to kill the Eternal Guards. Also, the Eternal Guards are throwing out some pretty nasty debuffs. I think it's a provoke and a decreased defense. So you definitely don't want those going on. Now, when his Conjure Souls resets, if there's no minions left, or if he's not able to conjure minions because they're still there, then he's gonna it's gonna cause Eternal Rage. So if only one minion is summoned or there are no minions summoned when this skill goes off, and the Eternal Rage increases his speed, lets him ignore unkillable, block damage, shields, and so forth. So you do want to pay attention to the minions. So in that regard, it can be good to bring AoE damage. Stagnite might be really helpful here in that AoE decreased defense and attack. So all that's going to be helpful. So basically, you're racing to kill the Eternal Priest. Try and kill at least one of the minions to prevent some of the heals. But the other thing is, because you're not going to be able to really keep up with keeping the ads off. You're not going to be able to necessarily kill all of them, so it's good to be mindful of how much damage you're doing to him. So I've done some teams here where I went more sustain, but I wasn't able to do enough damage, and then he just kept healing himself, so we were just in this stalemate where I'm alive and he's alive, and it goes on forever. All right, so let's go ahead and fight the boss now. I am using all legendaries here, so I know not all of you are going to have these champions. These are simply the champions that I have that best illustrate some of the concepts for this. And by the time you're getting to floor 40 of the Doom Tower, hopefully you'll have some legendaries of your own. And I'm going to just show you kind of the core things that you're going to want to look for, and some of the epics that you could substitute in their place. Okay? So we got Duchess here, mostly for the speed lead, but also as the, if anything goes wrong, she can do a team revive. Syl also has the revive, and she's just there to kind of do some damage, some crowd control. Ninja is here mostly because of his A2 to try and nuke down the boss as quickly as possible. And Mashald does some crowd control, increasing my speed, and also he can hit pretty hard. And then Brogni, of course, is in there because of his shields to help minimize the damage, because this boss does hit pretty hard. So some of these waves, it's good to have block debuffs as well, or cleansing, because you're going to get, the Drex Stars are going to be throwing Provoke. This guy... he's gonna be throwing some debuffs out, and so it's good to have the block debuffs ability. And then the next wave you're gonna see some what's it, not Chimera, I'm blanking, a Shazar, Lord Shazar, throwing out his bombs and so forth. So you want to make sure that you're able to deal with it. Now again, the waves aren't super challenging. Like, I get through it fairly quickly. And then you see these guys. So again, provokes, bombs, and all that stuff. So I'm going to just cut this here because I'm going to want to make sure that I have my skills back to use on the dragon as soon as I get there. So I'm going to do a little bit of manual through this wave here, and I'll see you at the boss. All right, we are here at the boss. And so if your team's fast enough, you're going to be able to get some of these skills off. So again, this is why it's good to bring someone who can boost your team's speed, just to kind of help them keep up and they're moving faster. So I'm going to go ahead and use Mashald here. He gets that speed bonus. He gives the crit damage bonus. So he's a really great champion for this if you have him, but he can be a little squishy. I'm going to get Brogni's shields up, and I'm going to have Ninja do what Ninja does, and that was probably close to 10% right there, which is nice. So it's good to have sort of like you could do an AoE nuker, like a Trunda or someone could be really helpful here. But for the most part, like a single target's good for bringing the boss down as quickly as possible. All right, so now the race has started to kill this dude, which is the Eternal Priest. See, he's got the staff. So you want to look for him. Now, this here is the cooldown for the consuming of the soul. So I've got 3 turns, but you see his turn meter got boosted right back up because of all my skills on cooldown. Now, I didn't build a ton of champions here with resist. Really, it's just Duchess who's resisting. So that his turn meter does fill up by a substantial amount. But if I can take out the Eternal Priest quick enough, then I'm going to get my skill cooldowns back. And there you see all the damage he just did. Actually, I probably should have used my block debuff skill with Duchess, but Brogni got his off. Because these guys are going to throw out some pretty nasty debuffs in a minute here. So let's see if we can get them down a bit. This is where having more AoE damage would be really helpful. But I kind of opted instead to focus more on damaging the boss. I don't think I'm going to be able to get these guys down. Ooh. Try this. Ah, and he consumed. So he managed to consume one of the champions, and you saw how much his health went. And then he put my skills on cooldown, so not cool. I should have used Ninja's HP burn. So you can see he's hitting pretty hard, and so now because the Eternal Priest is not out, I'm not getting my skill cooldowns back. So, oh wait, actually he's gonna use the A1. I should have blocked. Ah, darn. All right, let's see if we can take out the Eternal Priest because I do not want him getting his cooldowns back. I'll go ahead and throw this up. Oof. Yeah, Ninja's down. And now with this team, I have been able to do full auto on here sometimes, but it's not 100%. And there, he's going to heal again. But fortunately, I'm just going to focus on the boss because in a couple turns he's going to just summon more minions anyways. But this is why it's good to bring some revives. If you have hard-hitting defense champions, that can be really good as well. Sort of like a like Iron Brago can be really good, and he helps a little bit with crowd control as well. Wait. So I'm trying to keep the decreased defense on him as much as possible. I'll go ahead and put this up. And I do want to be mindful of the Eternal Priest. He's not going to consume him yet, but it's going to be good to just get all that back. I'll go ahead and throw that out. Let's see, I might be able to take this guy out before he consumes him. Let's see. And there's my skill cooldowns again. Will I? Yep, okay. Got to prevent him from healing that time, which is good. Now I'll throw the block debuffs back on just so that my team is not getting their skills blocked when he does the A1. And I do have Ninja in a Relentless set. It doesn't seem to be doing many extra turns this round, but having a few champions in Relentless can be really helpful because it just helps them to cycle through their skills that much faster. And there you can see how much damage he does, especially if there's a decreased defense down. All right. See if I can kill this guy. There's an extra turn. Ooh, yikes. And there's my skills back, so I get the shields just in time. And let's see, will I be able, I'm just going to go at the dragon. Now, part of the challenge here is the AI is going to target more the dragon a little bit earlier. And see, the problem is if you start targeting the dragon too early, then he's going to just start healing. And if your skills are locked up, you're not going to target the Eternal Priest. So that's if you're doing it on auto. So I do hope they change some of the mechanics because or at least some of the AI in terms of who your team targets, because I think it's like if the HP bar for the boss gets like past the 1/4 mark, they'll start targeting the boss. And I think it's really got to be a little bit lower unless you've just got champions that have really good damage on their A1. Okay? But so let's go ahead and look at the team. So part of what you want to look for is champions who bring good utility on their A1 and who can do a substantial amount of damage. So that is why I have Ninja here. He brings decreased defense on his A1. So you're definitely going to want this because that's going to help you take down the boss faster and also take down the Eternal Priest faster. Because if you're getting hit and your skills are going on cooldown, you better be able to do some damage on your A1 in order to get to that Eternal Priest so you can get your skills back. So that is why I have Ninja. You can look at other champions that have decreased defense on their A1. I'll cover a couple of those in a minute. Also, Ninja does a tremendous amount of damage with his A2, and he gives a little bit of crowd control here. So he can be a really great champion to have. Scylla the Drakes, I probably could have used someone else, but I have her in here for her passive. The passive heal is nice because you see how much damage the boss is doing, even though I actually have all these champions built with a fair amount of defense. But they're still taking a lot of damage, even with Brogni's shields up. So having the passive heals is really good, because the passives can't be put on cooldown. Let me see, who else was I using? No, Brogni. So Brogni, again, he's blocking the debuffs. He's putting up the big shields, and he can apply HP burn on his A1, which can be useful. Duchess is kind of that one champion here that I had built with enough resistance, so her skills were not going on cooldown. She's just sort of an alternate block debuffs champion and also a team reviver, and she has this passive. So if you have her, she can be really good here. She doesn't do much damage, but she is reducing AoE damage by a substantial amount, 15% from the bosses. So having someone like that can be really helpful. Iron Brago also has a bit of a similar effect in that he's increasing your team's defense, so you could potentially use him. And then Mashald, he hits hard. He's got good utility on his A2 here with increasing your speed, increasing crit damage, and he does a fair amount of damage. So that's why I picked him here, just to kind of keep my team going faster. And he doesn't have huge cooldowns either. So I'll show you the stats here. So Mashald is kind of the squishy one. I actually have him built for Arena right now. But you want to have accuracy on him. Ideally for this you want more defense and HP, but you don't necessarily have to make it work. Ninja, my build for Ninja, because I'm using him on bosses, so instead of loading him up on attack, I want to build some survivability into him. He benefits a lot from having extra attack, but for this, you kind of need to have a decent amount of defense, a decent amount of health. Ideally, I'd like him faster, but I like having him in the Relentless set because that way he's cycling through his abilities a lot faster and doing more damage. Syl, she's defense based, so I just loaded her up on defense. Probably want a little more health in here. If you can get crit rate on her, that's good. Accuracy is really helpful for landing some of her debuffs. Duchess, I just kind of built her as a tank. Here's the resistance. I'm not sure if I needed this much resistance for floor 80. Probably could go a little lower. If you're doing floor 40, I'm thinking probably if you can aim for like 400 of resistance, that should help. Maybe go a little bit higher. I forget exactly what the stat cutoffs are for the floors. But you are going to need a substantial amount of resistance if you want to resist the cooldown increase. So definitely, if you're building champions with resistance, you kind of have to go all in. Let's see, Mashald, Ninja, Brogni. Brogni, I just have him as a huge HP guy because his shields scale from HP, so that's why I have him in there. So some alternate champions that you could use. So one champion, and I think I've talked about her before. She's a great sub for Brogni. She's also a dwarf, Melga Steel Girdle. She kind of does very similar to Brogni. Now, she's not Brogni. She doesn't do the block debuffs, but she has a shield and a continuous heal all in one, and she can get pretty decent sized shields here. And the continuous heal is really going to help you. Plus, she brings a revive. I don't know why she's using these giant morning stars there because they hit like wet noodles, but but she does bring some utility to the team. I think this also has a chance of removing a random debuff from an ally, so that can be helpful. Stag Knight, I mentioned, he can be really good because he only has one cooldown skill. So even if this gets put on, it's not going to like boost the turn meter of the boss by too much. And he's bringing in AoE, drop attack, and drop defense, so that's going to help minimize how much damage you're doing. In the composition I used, I did not have drop attack, so that would really help with minimizing the damage as well. So having someone like Stag Knight, or potentially even someone like Tayrel, or someone who has a drop attack on their A1 could be helpful. Royal Guard is another option that you could use. He has this big nuke that does damage by enemy max HP, and he's also got a drop defense on his A1. So if you build him as sort of like a mix for utility, debuffs, and damage, he can place this, and then he does a lot of damage with his A2. Doom Priest can be super good, again, just because of her passive, removing the random debuff. Also, only one cooldown skill, so this is a 3-turn cooldown. Rearguard Sergeant has a decreased defense on her A1, so if you don't have Ninja for that, you could potentially use her, and then even if your skills go on cooldown, you can target the Eternal Priest, get the defense down, and then you're taking the priest out a lot faster. Let's see, Fane could potentially be decent, except, you know, she's got the cooldowns. So if you had a mix of accuracy and resistance, the nice thing with her is this skill can hit pretty hard and could take out the Eternal Priest kind of right away, but you'd have to have resistance built, and she is pretty squishy, so I don't necessarily recommend her, but it could be an option if you wanted to try it. Painkeeper would be an interesting option here just because you can decrease your skills cooldowns. So if you were to have Painkeeper build her in resistance, now all of a sudden, if the boss decreases your cooldowns, she can come right back in and reduce the cooldowns, at least by 1 turn, which will help you cycle through that much more quickly. Sepulchre Sentinel would be a potential option for blocking debuffs. She also increases defense, does decrease attack on her A1. Overall, a great champion for Doom Tower. I don't use her because I have other options, but if you don't have better options for these types of buffs for your team, she could be really, really helpful. Let's see. Apothecary could be useful here. He's not going to do damage, but he's going to help with his heal, which is only a 2-turn cooldown, and then his boon of speed is nice, fills your turn meter, increases your speed. These are good things to have for this fight, because even if you're not resisting the cooldowns, if you were to build him in resistance, because he doesn't need accuracy for anything, so you throw a resistance banner on there, throw a resistance chest on there. That way he's not getting his skills on cooldown, and then he can just kind of boost your speed, boost your turn meter, gets you through the cooldown phase a lot more quickly. So that would be a potential option here. There's other champions you could use, but that kind of covers kind of the core mechanics that you could use to try and get through this fight. All right. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you're really struggling with this and you're not sure, you can check out, Discord, and there's plenty of other avenues for getting some suggestions. Feel free to comment on the video. I'll try to respond, and if you just kind of like mention some of your champions, I can maybe try and give you some guidance there. Okay, so I hope that this video is helpful. I hope that you're able to take on the Eternal Dragon now, and at least clear floor 40 of hard. It's kind of, getting to the really advanced stages in hard can be very, very challenging, but if you can at least get through that boss one time, that's going to really help you in terms of progression, and eventually you're going to be able to climb and do the full Doom Tower. All right, so please like and subscribe to my channel. Hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next time.